Very warm welcome to Capital Sports 3.0. I am your co-host for this evening, Alan Moore. And of course, it is a new year, a new us, and a kind of a new format for the show as well. So you're going to have a bit of fun, I hope, with this. Don't get too angry with us because we are trying some things out. But the most important thing is we will have fun. And I have two superb co-hosts with me who basically this is what I think 8 years of doing the show. So this is 2024 is kind of a big step for us, but we're going to go hard. We're going to go have a bit of fun, and we're going to cover some of the more interesting topics that have bumped up, not since the start of this year. Well, actually it's been mental since this year, but of course since last year as well, the end of last year, since we went off the air. So I am delighted to welcome in Andrew Flint and Isolt Cody, our man of Siberia and our legal eagle. I know. There we go. Sorry, it doesn't matter. I'm pointing in different directions. Going to start off and just ask you both, Andrew, are you satisfied with the Man U result?
I have to say yes, because we didn't lose to one of the most exciting, genuinely exciting sides around. I knew there were going to be goals. Spurs play a high line. We're dreadful. And there were. Quite honestly, I think probably Spurs deserved it in the second half. But 2 goals, and most importantly, Rasmus Højlund scored again. So we're back on the right track.
Isolt, because Spurs were looking good for a long part of the season. It looks like it's struggling.
Oh, look, do you know what? We got to see a new player come onto the field. I think overall the positive to take from Spurs rather than the result is, aren't they glad that they didn't have the misfortune of being one of those teams that end up losing, where they actually were the better team throughout, particularly in the first half. They were much more dominant. I think overall Spurs, there's a lot of positives there, but in typical Spurs fashion, what we generally do in those games is actually end up conceding and losing by a goal when it seems against the run of play. So good game overall to watch. Also from a United perspective, I think seeing Rashford back scoring, do you know, there's a lot of people out there. I found myself going down a Twitter rabbit hole, or X, during the week, and somehow there just seemed to be a lot more abuse back up for Rashford, and maybe he obviously hasn't got his focus back. So great to see him score, and I think you'd have to be quite the begrudger not to. And I think there is obviously a huge level of interest at the moment. We're going to go into it in a minute, but in seeing what happens in United.
Exactly. Look, the most important thing is the one thing with Rashford. I think that's the 4th game in a row he's been involved in a goal, either an assist or a goal. So again, it's good for him, because we do, as a person, huge respect to the man, because when things were tough during COVID times, and not just, he was one of the few who stood up and put his hand in his pocket and put his money where his mouth was to actually, do good things. Did it pay off for him? Actually, no, I don't think so. I think that the media really got into it, and there's a lot of people who are out with knives to stab him. And when you lose a bit of form, when you're not playing well, then you're getting hammered as well. So look, we've seen Jadon Sancho moving away and also come back into form. And it does see that there will be more maybe little birdies flying the nest in Old Trafford as the rat starts to go in and nibble at the little eggs. Andrew, that's what we're going to come to you about as well, because of course the rat hasn't been ratified yet. Excuse me. But these are some of the, let's just say, some people would say fluffing and so on that's gone on with English media. It's really, really depressing and worrying. This is one from the US Sun about who is Dave Brailsford. We know who he is. It's funny they've not called him Sir Dave Brailsford. He is a Sir as well, same as Sir Jim, same as the original Sir Jim as well. And of course, this is from last October, and this is someone who actually took it on, Nathan, who said, this is strange because, this man was involved in some really nasty things in British cycling. Team Sky is still a team, or Ineos Grenadiers. Now he's going to be coming in, looks like he's going to be ruling the roost in Manchester United. Andrew, you've got 2 minutes to give your take on the takeover.
Well, firstly, I'm pleased this ridiculous saga is over. It's been 13 months since the Glazers started a ridiculously named strategic review. So that alone is relief for most Manchester United fans. The fan base is split on, well, the issue for months was, will it be Sheikh Jassim from Qatar, who wanted to go all in, buy out the whole club? Ratcliffe and Ineos didn't want to pay for 100% of the shares. They wanted to go for about 70% of them, I think. This is frustrating because, as everybody will know by now, the well-quoted figures are that Sir Jim Ratcliffe will take control of 25% of the shares, but most importantly, the sporting side. What does that mean? How can you control the sporting side if you don't control the purse? I mean, that doesn't make much sense to me. Anyway, that's the slight uncertainty. I'm pleased on one level. Sir Dave Brailsford is very well connected. He likes to hobnob a lot. He likes to have a lot of connections. And quite frankly, Manchester United need that. It is so well known how poor Manchester United have been at recruitment, at transfer dealings, at appointment, knowing when to get rid of talent, how to offload talent for the most price. And I think what Brailsford has admitted is that he knows very little about football. That will concern some people, but I actually don't think that matters. I think if he brings in the right people, and that is generally the way he's done things in other sports, then that can only be a good thing on the sporting front. Off the pitch, as you allude to, that is what concerns me. We know the very, very famous marginal gains phrase, which is basically him covering up for what could be all manner of sins. And a lot of people have said, well, some of those sins are enough to surely disbar him from serving in sport. If he doesn't know much about football, the only intellect he can add is a side that is not generally well understood within football circles, or at least not accepted to be understood. Perhaps within the game it is, but on the outside, not so much. And that's what worries me. What will it bring?
Isolt, come back on that. You've got a minute to come back. Andrew went just slightly over 2 minutes, but still he kept it well done. So, a minute for you.
I suppose the main thing I would take from what Andrew has said, and I think it's a very important point at the outset, is how can you control the sporting side of a football club in particular unless you are controlling the purse strings? Because otherwise, and obviously it's Sir Dave coming in, otherwise how are you planning on improving performance and getting better results if you don't have that level of control over the money? And marginal gains may have something to do with it. Let's see how that goes. I do think there's a very important point though to also be recognised in the fact that this has been a problem with United historically, and one that when the owners had their man in charge of the purse strings, recruitment has been slow. It has also not just been slow, but they have poorly recruited, which is a different thing altogether. When you give money and still can't recruit well, it shows that there is a failure somewhere along the lines with both talent recruitment, but also how they're approaching making deals, and whether other clubs, when they're approached by Man United, have been taking a certain view. Again, Sir Dave Brailsford brings a network that's across sports. Ineos and his connections will be invaluable to Man United, no matter what way you look at it. Whether you take a view that are we going to have to endure marginal gains, and the idea that it's sleeping on different pillowcases that will lead to improved results all of a sudden with the same squad, I don't think it will be. But I think this is a really interesting time. And if we disregard jiffy bags, questionable medical practices, and mobile phones and laptops disappearing, if we disregard all of that, and I know I'm going over a minute, but I think what we will potentially see is the fact that people at the highest level of sports coaching and performance management, it doesn't matter what sport they're in, because they can do that across the board. So I often find it funny when I see David Humphreys appointed.
Over the minute, well over a minute. Look, I'll put it like this. Yesterday, and I wrote about it yesterday as well. Yesterday, we took Tim to the gym. He's building up to go back into playing rugby. He's back in September after his back injury. Took him in. He had a second training. Sitting after change. So I went into the shower. A personal trainer who was there, like huge, bodybuilder, weightlifter kind of guy, just souped up. And so he was in the showers near me. I came back in. When I was drying off and changed and just putting my shoes on, he'd come out and he was standing. He'd already dried off, put on shorts, and he was standing sort of across from the locker where Tim and I were sitting. Tim was sitting on his phone like this, and the guy was standing in front of him. Guy takes out a syringe, a prepared syringe, gives himself one little testo boost and a second testo boost in his distended stomach. Afterwards, I said to him, "Did you see it?" I was like, "No, what was it?" And I'm thinking, so I've taken my son into a gym to get him back on track, and this is what he sees from a personal trainer, someone who people would pay money to come and be trained by. Now, we've all seen this, and I've seen this many times before, and this killed me because I'm thinking, I know what these people do. I've seen it when I've told my tennis players, my footballers, stay away from these people. Don't go near them because they will get you juiced. So when we're looking at Dale Brailsford, he achieved superb results in cycling, superb results on track as well, as in cycling on the track. There's only one way you can beat the dopers, and that's to dope better. And of course, to have better pillows, to take 3 kilo like toilet breaks and so on. So this is the thing. But again, it's something that, yes, he can cross over, he can do it, but how he's going to do it, the one thing we'll say is that it's worrying, but well, that's football. Now, one other thing we'll throw at you guys right now in the the African Cup of Nations is on, and the Asian Football Championship is on as well. One match happening right now at the moment. It is 3-1, I think, as we speak. That is, of course, Iran and Palestine. This is Iran and Palestine holding a minute of silence before the match for the victims of Gaza. I think it was, I would hope that they held it for everybody who's killed since October 7th, because I think that way then it brings us all back together, but I doubt it very much. One quick question for both of you. Isa, I'll let you start with this. You've got 30 seconds on it, a very strict 30 seconds. Should Israel be banned, like they have been banned from the International Hockey Federation or Ice Hockey Federation? Should they be banned from world sports or sanctioned in some way, similar to the way, for example, Russia have been?
I suppose we now have, when we discussed this before Christmas, one of the points I made is until there's an international sanctioning outside of sports, I don't think it's appropriate to necessarily expect sports to have to take the front running step there. Obviously, we are seeing the actions before the courts brought by South Africa, which, while they will take time, may result in sanctions coming from a different area. I think we also have to think of, irrespective of our views on the situation in Israel with Palestine, we also need to think of the safety of players and participants in sports from both sides. So if there is a risk to the well-being or safety of players by participating, that needs to be our key consideration.
Perfect. Yeah, Isel, look, we've discussed this from February 2022. We were live in the air. We discussed the same thing. We had people who were decision makers in Russian football on. We had commentators from outside Russian football. We had a lot of people on. So we've been through this. Andrew, 30 seconds starts now.
Yeah, I think he sort of hit the nail on the head with what the priority ought to be. Is obviously the purpose of a ban. That's what people forget. It becomes a moral crusade before people realise, well, what are we doing this for? The safety of the players and of fans or officials, anybody connected with games that are playing on both sides. Because no matter what anybody is going to try and do, there will be protests in and around games. That's the thing you've got to remember. What we see on TV, the 90 minutes of football, that is literally just a game. There's got to be travel there. People are staying in different countries. Do I think they should be banned? Well, there are arguments to be made for and against. Personally, I genuinely am not sure. I don't mean to sit on the fence, but only if people remember why it is in place.
Good. That's a good point. And again, the International Ice Hockey Federation, the reason why, and people jumped on this, because I first put it on Twitter, and I was like, oh, and I had spoken with one of the guys who was part of this decision-making process. And he simply said, look, Serbia said they couldn't guarantee their safety because they do know that across the border in Bosnia, in Albania as well, there are people who are not quite right in the head. And I'm sorry, they're not right in the head because they believe that killing another human being because of religion is a good thing. That's wrong. It's always wrong. Second thing as well is the UAE are in their pool as well, Division 2 of the World Championship, and UAE said it would be very hard for them to take part. So, and again, completely understandable, completely with it. So again, the joke is like that. Of course, the UAE has like all the Hamas. Well, no, sorry, they're in Qatar. But this is the whole thing. It's such a mess. And safety has to be brought to the fore, and safety is most important. So yeah, very, very good point made by you both. Isel's topic that we're going to have a look at now, of course, and this is a certain, well, I think Andrew's an aficionado, Joey Barton. This, of course, is him answering back to a BBC guy, Jeremy Vine, who he titled Bike Nonce. So again, he said it in a way because Joey Barton's not been holding back. He's been letting fly. He said, you've got 2 minutes to tell us what Joey Barton was on about, and not this, of course, but previous. Of course, that's Ralph Harris, my childhood hero in the photo. Anyway, getting on past that, Isel, 2 minutes. What Joey Barton's on about and how it has been damaging overall.
So Joey Barton, where I was going to start with Joey Barton before everything kicked off with Jeremy Vine in the last number of days would have been, and I don't want to go into his full back history, before Christmas when the Sports Personality of the Year in the UK was won by Mary Earps, who's obviously the English women's soccer goalkeeper. Joey decided to go online and basically lambast her winning it, with some quite sarcastic comments about how great it was, pointing out that he felt if he was to take 100 penalties against her, he would score all 100. And this seemed to be the start of what has continued to be a very vitriolic attack on women involved in sports and a demeaning of women, which is also included in the last number of days. Sam Kerr, who's obviously the Australian women's football captain, a celebration of a goal that she scored, and the associated celebration had been put up and posted online from a Champions League game for Chelsea. I think it was actually posted by the competition itself, basically saying it was poetry in motion and what a fantastic goal. And he has sort of sarcastically suggested that this is not the case. He also attacked two female ex-footballers who were doing the commentary on an FA Cup game, and basically made a comparison between them and two serial killers, which it's unbelievable that the comparison was horrendous to begin with. But what really is worrying is we're at a precipice for women's sport. We're at a point where funding has never been greater, where participation numbers are continually growing in a huge, diverse range of sports. And to have these sort of comments by someone who would have been a high-level athlete, I say that through gritted teeth, really is such a dangerous and disparaging, and also fundamentally can risk participation if this is the sort of level of abuse you're seeing coming across the board. And what is more worrying isn't Joey Barton's words in and of themselves. It's the fact that if you go online, you see all these people agreeing with him and his suggestion that people are agreeing with him. What happened with Jeremy Vine just has really escalated to the point where Joey posted pictures suggesting that Jeremy Vine, who's obviously the cycling commentator, was considering legal action against him. And I think he then removed the picture because he had posted a picture of documents which clearly said they were not for publication. But the worrying trend here is that this is a man with a platform who is using it to disparage the women's game, and not just the participants, the commentators. Women's sports needs not just people playing, they need people across the board, commentary, officiating.
Andrew, your minute to come back and...
Well, I think that he sort of makes that point about the platform. That's the thing that stood out for me the most. Joey Barton is not alone in voicing these opinions. I myself am involved in quite a lot of chat groups with different journalists and fans of sport. And as soon as she said that, a lot of people backed him and said, "Yeah, go on, Joey, well said, man. Proper football men. Football's for men. I don't want women ruining the game. I don't want female commentators." It is such a quick and easy and rapid fire thing that just explodes out of nowhere. Joey Barton knows this. What struck me the most was it came across exactly like Donald Trump would say something in a political sphere, knowing he's got the platform, knowing it's going to take off, almost not even caring what he's saying, just the fact it will garner coverage. It doesn't even make logical sense, Joey Barton. This is a man who tried to fake a French accent when he was on loan at Marseille for a few weeks and think people would take him seriously. He was a dreadful, failed footballer. What I would say is there is a lot of discussion that needs to be had, and it's going to come across weirdly, but on the whole, women commentators, but specifically here, women in TV studios, I think it is irrelevant what the gender is. It's whether you are good or bad. And the fact is, a lot of female commentators are simply not as experienced as you would like them to be, perhaps. But how else are they going to get experience? It's a chicken and egg situation. It's a vicious circle. So Joey's focusing on his own platform.
Okay, but again, he's able to use his own, passes, his professional. Again, to play at the level he did, he had to be a good athlete and a good footballer. So there's no disputing that. I think it's a difficult situation when you come when you say about experience. Can women get experience? I know, for example, in Irish TV, one of someone who grew up in sports and was a fine athlete herself, from gymnastics to Gaelic games, and had a background in rugby. is Joanne Cantwell. Now, she presents on ours. She's the host. She's also from a GAA background. Like her father was GAA through and through from Meath.
She's brilliant.
Yeah, and I mean, I've known her since we were kids. We did gymnastics together. Her dad and I worked together, and terrific. And again, her sister played for Dublin for GAA, Julie, and I mean, so there should be no barrier.
Laura Woods is probably the best commentator on BT
Okay.
currently in any area. And
look, there's one of the best tennis commentators, even though I don't really like her too much as in how she kind of acts with tennis players, is Chris Evert. And when you listen to her, she's very, very, very good on the men's game. On the women's game, she's actually pretty poor. And I think because she is trying not to insult people, but for the men's game, no one's better. We saw the same kind of abuse being given to the man from the north when he hired a French. We know who I'm talking about. Andy Murray. Anyway, when he hired a woman as his trainer. People forget his mother was his trainer since he was a kid. She used to bring him over to Ireland. They used to bring the Irish tennis players over to Scotland. So, there should be no discrimination. There should be no sexual things. One of the things I know that Joey Barton and a lot of people get annoyed about is some of the people who come in and work their way up. And it's happening in US sports, even though it's more acceptable there. For example, in American football, you have the sideline commentators who are primarily women, or mixed women. The people who do the interviews on the ground are women, and they're terrific. Again, they're very, very good, very, very polished. But again, they have the experience. And in American sports, it's slightly different as well. It's been like that for a long time. Now, this person I'm going to put up here, and you come back on it right away, is someone who basically had worked her way up, has not been a superb journalist, was able to write a book while dating a Liverpool player called Believe Us, How Jurgen Klopp Transformed Liverpool into Title Winners. And when you see her work in action, just come back on it, okay? So just watch it. I think you know who this is. Andrew, I think knows who this is. Issa, you know who this is. You know who this is as well. This is one of the reasons why Joey Barton is able to get traction. It's people who basically are not great in front of the camera, but they've been pushed to a level that there's too many questions asked. And the same for men. The same for men as well.
Yeah.
Today, can't they? Can you tell us a bit more about that? Yes, they could make it 24 wins at home, and that would, you have to stretch back to like 1890, 1892, the last time Sunderland managed to do it in the top flight. So quite some feat by them. And if you have to think back to the last time Manchester didn't take all the points at home, you'd have to go back to 31st of December 2022. Now, winning here is what they do, especially in this fixture. This is a home team fixture generally. Liverpool have not seen any joy here since November 2015, and that was in Klopp's debut season in charge. But Klopp said about winning runs that the longer it goes on, the closer it is to ending, and that is Liverpool's goal.
That's Melissa Reddy, South African. She was dating Sadio Mane. She worked her way up and was inside in football and got access to football. But people within football, even other women, speak with them. I know Andrew and I, we did back and forth. Well, just back and forth with this earlier on. Speaking with some people who dealt with her were just like, "What? How does she get here? She's just not good." Isel, is one person enough? Because I saw you making faces when you're watching that. It's kind of like, that's a hard watch. Does she set the fight for women's accessibility within sports the same as Joey Barton would for men's opinion in sports?
No, you see, I think the difficulty is we've often seen it with players across multiple sports who go on to be commentators post-career, and they're just not good on TV, even though they know the game better than anyone else. Not everyone is designed to do that role. You also don't know the pressure someone is on when they're on the camera in front of them and they're trying to give a coherent speech. She seemed very nervous to begin with. I think you probably could have had an entire teleprompter in front of her with the correct things, and she probably would have gone on her own little tangent. But I think that's the thing. If you focus in on one person, they're bad presenters in so many sports across the board. And I think if you're to say she's not setting anyone back, what she maybe is getting a job ahead of someone else, and that's not necessarily gender based. It may be the person she was with, or it may be that she just had the right connections or the right look, and that can go both ways. I don't think like if you're going to pull up one example and go, this is why women's commentating is being set back, I think that's a really unfair pressure, firstly to put on that one person, and secondly to not go, we have bad male commentators too, we have plenty of them.
Look, we see it with Gary Neville, who's getting tortured today, and I mean I think he's very, very weak sometimes. Andrew, very, very quickly, you agree with Iso that if we hold one person up, whether it be Joey Barton or Melissa Reddy, it's unfair.
Well, the bottom line is just judge people by their ability and performance. I mean, in a way, I'd say it is in favour of supporting women's progression in the industry to criticise them when they make mistakes, because you're taking them seriously. That is literally it. That is the bottom line for me. I'm not a fan of promoting for the sake of it. Some people call it tokenism or whatever it is, and if that goes too far, then obviously I'd say that's more damaging than helpful. Like the Rooney Rule for racing, I find it the most moronic idea in sport. I genuinely, honestly do. I feel strongly about that. So, women need to be given an opportunity if they're good enough. If they're not, no, not because you're a woman, because you're not good enough. It's that simple. Look, that's how I look at it.
We know this. Iso, you're here with us because you're good enough. You're more than good
because
enough.
I'm female. No, it's okay. It's fine. We've been through this. It's because I'm female. It's cool. It's cool. I'm okay with it. It's fine.
And Andrew's trans, so we're okay. We're ticking all the boxes, And I identify as a bicycle, so I'm all right.
I would say.
Sorry.
I would say. I've been reminded of this because Ricky Hatton is currently appearing on Dancing on Ice, which is a crossover I never needed to see. I have seen where female, and particularly in boxing, there have been one or two instances where they had a female presenter on large platforms and they didn't have good boxing knowledge, but they were particularly easy on the eye, enjoyable, did their best with the limited knowledge they had of the sport. They didn't do bad jobs presenting. They just didn't have the knowledge that a lot of fans, hardcore fans, wanted, and they were moved on. And it's kind of like, I could have easily had them present because they weren't annoying or irritating. They were just presenting. They weren't pretending to be experts.
That's it.
I think that's a really, really key aspect. Some people try and merge the two, knowledge of a sport and ability, the technical
Presenting
ability.
is a skill.
Two massive things. If you have both, then obviously you're onto a winner. But you can easily make it work so much better if you allow that separation. Just one other name I wanted to shout out. That's a really good example of possibly my favourite anchor, studio anchor, is that Kate Abdo. I forget which American network it's on. She speaks about 5 languages fluently.
NBC, I think it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is it NBC? Which is she's on with Thierry Henry a lot, and I think Jamie Carragher's guests with them sometimes. She's so natural at talking to everybody's character. She's as smooth as she like. I honestly think she's the most skilled presenter, but also is incredibly knowledgeable.
That's how I feel about Laura
every day
Woods.
of the week.
Yeah.
Give me her as a presenter ahead of Jamie Carragher or any of those nonsense, idiotic morons every day of the week.
I'd add to that again, and this is a former guest of our show as well, friend of mine, Semra Hunter. Now she presents on Spanish football. She speaks Spanish. She lives. Andrew, you were on us when she was on the show as well. So she speaks Spanish. She speaks a number of languages. She's part Turkish as well. Grew up in the UK, but also in the States. So she's a polyglot. She's extremely intelligent, and she's very good. Now there are presenters. There's someone from Northern Ireland who was presenting cycling, and then it ended up that it was getting such bad reactions that they actually closed the show down simply because they were trying too hard to be cool and they did little TikTok dances. But Semra can stand there and pose, and she's a brilliant, wonderful person. And people see her for what she is. And again, she can speak on any level. You speak around the ex-Spanish internationals that I've interviewed that she's been hosting the shows with. She's an expert. So again, there's no barriers to that. If you're good enough, you'll get there. Going to wrap up very, very quick because we've a couple more little things to go through. And one of them here is this is a hard one. It happened, today, a new world record, 10K world record, another Kenyan world record, Agnes Ngetich. She ran in 10 kilometers in 28.46 minutes. Now, I know I can run I can run 4:30 for a kilometer and do it for maybe 3 kilometers, but she did that in a tremendous pace. Isolt, I'm going to ask you first a very quick yes or no. Should we believe this record with what we know goes on in the world of sports?
I won't say that we need to not believe it. What I think we need to do is look at it with very questioning view. And with any world record, I like to give it a while until I believe it. See what comes out in the wash.
Andrew, for you?
Well, I would say the same. Your first reaction, unfortunately, is we need to question it. I guess world records especially do have to be scrutinised. It's a shame that's the case, but it is the case, unfortunately. So it needs to be scrutinised, but given due process.
Okay. Last quick little things before we let Lisa run to the airport. This one here cropped up.
I'm not running. I'm driving. I can't do it in 20
Driving,
minutes.
thank you. Yeah. You could make it, actually. If you ran, you're about 10 kilometers from the airport. You could run it if you were hurt.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay. Put your friend on your back. All right. This happened over a week ago, related to the Epstein list. You know who this is. I'm going to just get a very quick take on both these for this.
Epstein.
A lot of people, including Jimmy Kimmel, are really hoping that doesn't.
Aaron Rodgers, former Green Bay Packers, well, he's out injured now from the New York Jets. He basically made a joke and said, well, a lot of people worried about this new Epstein list, which was breaking the next day. And he said, oh, Jimmy Kimmel, the talk show host, is going to be nervous in a throwaway remark. Now, Kimmel had been going at him about his views on vaccines, his views on war, his views, many different things. And Kimmel has a major platform on ABC. He has a late night show, and I think he's pretty poor, but he has a huge platform. So he's now Rodgers has been hammered for this, absolutely hammered for this. Kind of linking someone with a paedophile. Is that cancellation immediately?
I don't agree with cancel culture, but I think there's a huge issue.
Epstein.
A lot of people, including.
Firstly, let's just be clear on this. This was a list given in civil proceedings. There are no actual charges or proof against anyone on this list. These are depositions where they're quoting people who were on these lists. So to go and then say something like that is incredibly inappropriate. It's why I found the Joey Barton calling someone a nonce because they're in a photograph with someone who's been convicted of something. Like, it's just the joke before. I find it very uncomfortable and very distasteful. And I think you can sanction, or like companies can walk away from sponsorships, do other things. Don't cancel someone, but remember this into the future when you deal with him.
He did kind of apologize, and he kind of justified what he did. Andrew, they were all egging him on, and they're all laughing over it. And I mean,
you could see all of their faces. They love the fact he made that face because it gets clicks, it gets attention.
Yeah, that's it. Simple as that. Next to last, this one. This is one that kind of came in with a scandal, and I'll read the headline. Okay, first for you. Australian Open ball girl left terrified by Russian star's angry outbursts. You'll see it now. Now, they made more of that. Was he went on to win the game that is, now just blanked his name, Zotov. It's not Alexander Zotov, Pavel Kotov. He beat his French opponent Rinderknecht, and went on, but people are saying that he should be thrown out, he should be banned for hitting the ball against the wall. The girl did, when she saw him swinging, she went at that, but I think everybody did. But suddenly she stood back and was fine. And there was no sanctions, no worry, but they made it like, oh, this evil Russian. Andrew.
So predictable. So predictable. All you've got to do when any major tournament comes around and say Russian star and negative word, doesn't matter. You could write the price of fish in a Chinese market. It wouldn't matter. The article would be a hit. I agree. I think it is. I do think it's poor. It's a very poor look to smash the ball like that,
Yeah.
just on basic manners in sport, and also because you don't know exactly when you're in that frustrated moment where the ball could end up. Luckily, it didn't hit anybody or injure anybody, and a lot has been overblown. I do think it should be spoken to. I don't know if there should be a punishment. Perhaps there should be some sort of a sanction, because it isn't a good look for tennis as a whole. But my word, that is just lazy journalism.
Isolt, I mean, and it's whipped up a lot of reactions online as well, because in the Mirror article it says it was the same wall that a young girl was standing up against, and she clearly recoiled. And when you hear this, fearing the ball may have hit her. Had she been hit by the ball,
You'd know about it.
Sorry, can I just check I've heard that correctly? Feared she may have been hit by the ball. Feared what? You, the person involved in this? That is the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard.
It's just, I was like, I was yawning with just going, oh, this is bad. Okay,
Well,
so
look,
all right.
If that was Djokovic, would we be hearing the same thing? No, we'd be like,
if it was
Djokovic
Roger Federer,
we'd have heard there was a temper tantrum, yes, but the fact that his nationality has absolutely nothing to do with his behaviour. His behaviour was appalling, very ignorant. I'm sure the tour will speak to him, or there will be some sort of apology given, etc. But his nationality, like, your bad behaviour, happens irrespective of your nationality. That isn't a factor.
And he's not Russian.
Oh, great.
Because no, he's not Russian, because there's no Russians there. They play without flags. They're people with no nations.
No, so it doesn't exist, of course. How could we think there was a country called that?
That won't sound as dramatic in a headline. Man with no country, traumatized in Australia.
The very last piece we're going to have a look at is one I think you will like. And again, I'll just show you this headline, because this is what I was not joking. Like, and they cut the moment when the girl kind of like turns around, and it looks like he's smacking her with the racket. It's really.
It's just the picture.
They've not even used.
Next headline there, you.
They've not even used the right word. It's not an outburst. An outburst means you verbalise something, you shout something, you're targeting somebody very specifically. That's not even close to an outburst. I mean, you can't. It still doesn't matter, because that's the last word in the headline. That's the golden rule of journalism. You put the key words as close to the beginning of the headline or first paragraph as possible. The other words don't even matter. I mean,
this
was appalling.
Enough of this. This, of course, is Coventry City fans welcoming Leicester City fans. This is to do, of course, with the tragic helicopter crash of the former Leicester City owner. Obviously, at match day, I think we all remember that moment. Vici was killed, the owner, the Thai owner. This has come in for a lot. A lot of people, of course, are saying, oh, it's rude, it's terrible. It's like, it just shows what they are, and it shows what football is, and so on, football fans are. We discussed this before. You don't have to have an IQ to follow a football club. You don't have to have an IQ to pick up a tennis racket. You don't have an IQ to go cycle a bike, step in the ring. You can going.
You hear awful comments in lots of sporting arenas. Someone went and got that printed.
Yeah.
And there should be a boycott of wherever printed that up. Firstly, that should be identified. But that doesn't represent an entire team. That represents the individuals who went and got that, the individuals who printed and facilitated it, and the people who hung that up. Yeah. That's what it represents. It doesn't represent an entire football club, and let's not tar 100%. Everyone with the brush of those scumbags.
Agreed. Look, I think we've seen it before. We've seen European teams, we've seen Russian teams as well, putting up their banners and their, showing off how great they are. We've seen banners go up in crowds. We've seen, I do think in one sense, Cork fans, as in Cork GAA fans, Cork people, were well represented by Old Glory, by the Confederate flag.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, Andrew? No?
Yep. They used to have it at matches.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't surprise me from what I have been told by various people of Cork, but then I have no reason to understand that. Yeah. But
so
just trust us on Cork.
Yeah. So on that note, I'll say thank you both very, very much. We will have another superb show next Sunday. I hope you enjoyed it, sort of a bit of a change around as well. We've got through a lot of topics, a lot of shortened topics, we did very, very well. Isolt, have a superb day and a safe drive to the airport. Andrew, have a superb week, and thank you very much as well.
Thank you, guys.
Pleasure to be back.
And on that note, we are going to go out for this week. We'll turn off that video because you don't need to see it, not yet. And of course, we'll be speaking with you all next week again on more Cala Sports 3.0. we have a superb guest coming up next week as well. It'll be a pre-recorded interview. We'll play it during the show. You will absolutely love it. I promise you, it'll be a big shock, but you'll enjoy it. So until next week, I'm Alan Moore saying take care of yourselves and each other.